There are those who try to feed on the soul energy of others, and the problem is they don't succeed. They are doomed to fail, but they will repeat their failure over and over again. It's a division and fear program, and it keeps people divided and it keeps people in fear, therefore easier to control. Humans are the control grid. If you can instill a level of control in a large enough group, they will do the controlling for you. There are, of course, intergalactics who are benevolent. Galactic wars have gone on for eons. Once you get past 2030, the gloves are off where the light is concerned.
Artificial intelligence. It can be a very useful tool, and it can also potentially have its own hazards. Many people are questioning whether this technology will develop sentience.
Human beings still aren't sentient. There is an agenda out there that wants to reassure everybody that AI is going to give everyone an easier life, and it is not a truth. Anything you hear, you have to stand back and ask yourself, did I just hear a fact, or did I just hear fact mixed with opinion mixed with desire? The problem I often see with spiritual teachings is if they come with a real yes, no, this is how it is way, it's setting most people up for failure. The true spiritual teacher understands that their biggest role is actually student. For everyone who thinks you are a teacher, there will be someone else who calls you a charlatan, a liar. Welcome to planet Earth. If they follow the rules, they will get back to that feeling of love. If you go to school at the right time, you will not get told off. If you get married, you will surely be happy. If you have a job that pays you enough money, you will be able to buy the car and the holiday that will make you feel happy. No, 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 no. There are people on Earth right now living utopia, and there are people on Earth right now living hell.
This realm, as you say, has the potential for a deep hell state, but also what a heaven, what a kingdom that we have spread before us.
Heaven on earth can be experienced in you, through you, with you, from you. And heaven on earth does not look like a place. It feels like an experience. The system that has been designed is revealing itself as the hell.
I had a guest on the podcasts. He was a DMT researcher, Dr. Andrew Gallimore. He said that intergalactic citizenship is a noble aspiration, but interdimensional citizenship is close at hand. And for yourself, it's not close at hand, it's here. You have a relationship with a set of guides you call the Z's that have opened you up to this interdimensional cosmos. What would you and or the guides have to say about that comment made by Dr. Gallimore?
Well, you know, one of the things that my guides have said repeatedly over especially recent years is that we are becoming more aware that we are galactic and that is the timeline for the future. So we will no longer think of ourselves in the story of being human. And so for myself, I think, you know, my experience of it has become something I can look at more objectively as time has gone on and as people say things like you just said to me. Because to me, it's like, it's normal and it has been normal for a long time, but I'm very aware that it isn't always normal for other people. It certainly wasn't when I first heard my guides 26 years ago. It wasn't as normal as it is now. I think we are, as a society, coming back to our intuition. I think that realm was taken from us. We were
Was it taken intentionally?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about that.
Because when you cut people out of their own intuitive realm, you cut them away from their sovereignty, and they can then be controlled, herded, and that's very much why I think we have such a disconnect in our society right now. And even those of us who have connection to interdimensions, we still experience disconnection all the time because we're in a disconnected world. Now, I'm 49, and I think the world is more and less disconnected than it was when I was younger. We have more things that are designed to disconnect us than ever before, yet we also have this rising consciousness in people where more people are literally getting turned on in themselves to the fact that there's something bigger, especially as the control grid on the planet gets tighter and smaller. More people recognize how unaligned it is. Sometimes they have to go quite far into that disalignment to feel it. Mm-hmm. So it's funny, to me, interdimensionality is normal, but even I am having to normalize it in my own mind in a way, like even through conversations, even you throwing what you just threw at me. You know, most of the time I'm walking around the world and people aren't asking you about your intuition or how you're perceiving.
Like someone asking a fish about the ocean.
100%.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. And I wasn't trained in it. It's something that through my own, being a student of self-growth and spirituality was my path. But it wasn't like I had one person who taught me, this is how you become intuitive, and then you do this and you do this. It's kind of a lot of trial and error as you go. And intuition should be personal. Mm-hmm. It's a very personal path. I think the biggest problem that we often run into in spirituality is people think there is going to be a teacher who has all the answers. There is no person or teacher who has all the answers, because we are supposed to be unique. Mm-hmm. Therefore, there will be some teachers for some teachers for others. So, in a way, the control that we've all been pushed into tells us right, wrong, black, white, yes, no. Mm-hmm. None of that exists when you go into the other realms. None of that exists. That's very earth. So for me personally, and I think for a lot of people, we do our best to keep finding experiences that light us up, open us up, create more of that in our energy field.
I think without a proper view of interdimensionality and the multiple different dimensions, it's very difficult to understand the paradox of our existence. Whereas in this 3D existence, there may be a better path and a worse path, a path of love and a path of harm. And it's important to draw those distinctions. And then as you move up the dimensional levels, at some level, I think the polarity of the light, the good, is grateful for the polarity of the dark that holds the balance. And then there's another whole dimension of pure unicity. Mm-hmm. And then it fractals down through different dimensional levels. And in order to understand that, is the key to understanding the paradox of our existence and how to navigate.
Yeah. And also, where are you understanding it from? Because most of us want to understand it from the mind. Mm-hmm. So we're like, well, tell me what the 9th dimension is and I will understand it with my mind. Well, you won't. The mind might be the doorway of access for some people, but until it hits the body and until it hits experience and until it hits the energy field, it's theory.
Yeah. So I've been as you may well know, I've been a psychonaut since I was 18 years old. So, that's over 26 years, about to be 27 years. And it's very funny for me to have conversations with people about God who've never done 5-MeO DMT. It's like, okay, like we can talk about it, but the moment you put it into words, it's somewhat profane and idolatrous, right? It's indescribable.
Yeah.
It's like all you can say is God, like, wow, love, wow. Like that's literally my soundtrack for every and like anything else I say is nonsense. It can be helpful. It can be like the finger pointing at the moon, and it can be helpful in some ways. So of course I do explain as best I can, but I'm also very well aware that gnosis is the only true knowledge. You have to feel it. And I think the place to feel it is in your heart. And I think that's one of the things I really love about your work is how heart-centric it is. Because if you get lost in the mind, you can make a lot of rationalizations and justifications for pretty much everything.
Yeah.
But if you feel it in your heart, then the heart knows.
Yeah. That's funny. One of the quotes from my guides, the Z's, years and years ago, I think it was 2006, they said, ask the heart for it knows everything. And at that time, I remember thinking, oh, that's really nice. That's interesting. Now I understand exactly what they mean. It took me 20 years. Well, maybe less than 20 years, but yeah.
And in 20 years, you probably know it even better.
Yeah, 100. I hope so. I hope so.
That is the way. All right, I got to go back to what you said about the control grid, because obviously I think people are becoming aware of a contemporary control grid that's there and potential deep state forces or potential even interdimensional forces. But that leads me to the original part of the question. You've mentioned that around 10,000 years ago, there was a control grid that was snapped onto the Earth on a consciousness perspective.
Mm-hmm.
What is that story? Tell me about that.
That might be a better question for my guides when we channel, because that came from them. But what I can tell you in brief, and it's funny, I think they talk about it in the book, The Future Human, but they also have said that they haven't gone into massive amounts of detail about it, because they said they can feel distraction. They can feel that it would distract everyone back in time. At this moment in time, we aren't ready to know the full story, not because we're not capable of it. It just wouldn't help us. What we actually have to tackle right now is the awakening that's happening on the planet for people around, oh, this is not the world I thought it was, and the way it's being run and organized is not what I thought it was. And I mean, we're right in that right now. But the 10,000 years ago, what they have said is that because Earth is a resource, and Earth is a very important resource galactically, there has been a form of experiment here that is now at its end. And that's also why we are about to be returned to the knowledge of our galactic origins as a species, not just when we die, but while we're alive in this season of Earth's life. And that's going to change everything. It's going to cause a lot of disruption. It's going to cause a lot of, for some people, a period of shock, grief, horror, processing they'll have to go through. But the gift of the grief, the shock, the horror they're going through is actually they're just purging out. And we are what we have swallowed as truth. And when you purge that out, it's like a cleanse. You get back to that enlightened, open state that you were always meant to be. So it's almost like clothes that we have all worn are now beginning to come off, and we're getting truly in touch with our bodies, our energy fields. So maybe ask the Z's about the 10,000 year ago thing if you want a bit more detail on it.
And the Syrian capsules, and there's lots of very interesting things.
There are, and I'll also say that I have seen differing stories out there as well. So
there's a ton of stories. I mean, there's the Anunnaki stories,
and they contrast. And this is the tricky thing about trying to find the truth of a historical story. It's all going to depend on the eye of the beholder, the energy field they're in, what they need that story to mean to them, because the past is not as important. That's what they would say. Of course, we think the past is important, and as humans, we're actually trained to be obsessed with the past. We're steered away from the present, and we're certainly not told that we're creating our future right now. That has been erased for most people and called woo-woo or whatever. Now, I think that's changing in mainstream society. And of course, certain cultures have always held that truth and stood for that truth, and often they've been destroyed because of it.
Yeah. I do feel that to really remember who we are, we have to remember who we've been in some ways. Like, it is helpful, actually, I find, to actually understand the origins and have a clean origin story that actually we can orient ourselves to, because with messy origin stories, we have messy understandings that follow subsequently from those postulations, right?
Yes. And the truth for most of us is, if we're alive as a human being in this incarnation for, I don't know, let's say up to 120 years, 130 years for some people at this moment in time, we dropped into this body. So who knows who we were or where we were before? That's the other truth that the Z's talk about. They say, you may have been human multiple times. You may have never been human. You may not be human again. And that's the thing that I think is tricky about us trying to, I think it's great to understand where humanity was 10,000 years ago. It's pretty brutal, pretty dark. That's the thing I'm always shown when I go back in time. And it actually often helps me with now, because I think we're often told by media sources how awful everything is now. And we know that a lot of that is manipulation and lies. We're also constantly pumped fear stories instead of stories that would actually uplift humanity and, again, put humanity back into a power where we would create the new world. That's actually what we're being halted from. Creating a new world and a new paradigm on Earth, because that's what those who want to keep control of the planet don't want.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting bifurcation of the understanding of the past. One being the kind of Atlantean, beauty, or the Lemurian beauty of these previous cycles that humanity has gone through. So there's this almost utopic view of the past. And then there's a cataclysm, which is pretty much everybody understands is true. Randall Carlson's done that work. There's been a lot of people who've really shown that this idea of a flood is real.
Yeah.
And so that's, of course, like so much of the world has been wiped out multiple times through a series of different catastrophes, meteors, etc. And that's, there's a tragedy to that, but it feels like an accident of the cosmos. So it doesn't have the same horror that people intentionally harming other people looks like. So I'm very curious to see what your guides have to say about potentially that transition from those, from the flower of those old civilizations to the struggle that was there, or maybe the struggle that was always there. And maybe we're fantasizing a utopia of the past.
It's funny because as you were saying that about the utopia of the past, what I heard was, it wasn't utopia for everyone. And that's the thing, that it's like now there are people on Earth right now living utopia, and there are people on Earth right now living hell. So it just depends.
And it doesn't matter how much money you have or where you live or whatever. It's a matter of your internal choices and the state of consciousness that you're able to access.
And who you're aligned with. Because, for example, regarding finance, yes, you can generate a certain amount of wealth that can insulate or protect you from certain things in the world, more so than someone who doesn't have access to that. But if you are disturbing those in power, then that can be stopped, that can be taken away, that can be... So it's interesting. There's always a... What's the word? There's always a potential sledgehammer for any life, which is not to say that we don't have... I actually find that quite healthy to know that nothing in the future is guaranteed. I think a lot of the times in spiritual communities, there is a need to control. So it's like, I'm manifesting my future because I hated my past.
Yeah, and if something doesn't work out, you've failed to attract it in the correct way, and it's your fault. Just like the people used to believe, Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed because they were having too much sex.
Yep.
Or maybe just a meteor, actually, if that happened, it broke into many pieces and created a flashpoint on the ground, and it just fucking happened. It's not their fault.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we always want to understand things.
Yeah.
And, even with like a cancer or something like that, like in the spiritual communities, this is a disease of repression, and this is, wherever it is there's some metaphysical reason. And there may be some truth to that. I think there is a partial truth to all of these things, which is why they're not easily dismissed. And there's also, sometimes shit just happens, and it's our response. It's about our response. How do we respond to what's happened? Does it bring us closer to our truth and to our potential, or does it bring us further away from that?
And this is why we all have to get clear about what's true for us, what's true for our path, what's true for our life. It might be very different for someone else. When I used to go to, a lot of the self-growth workshops I was going to 26 years ago. So where are we now? 2020? Yeah, like 2000. There would be a theme in the room sometimes that if someone was sick, or why did you manifest this? How did you manifest this? And then everyone would be talking about it. And I always remember thinking, I didn't know enough at the time to fully have a realized sense of why I didn't agree, but something felt off to me. I thought, well, this is not where your focus should be now.
Yep.
If you are sick, now your focus should be on healing. And hey, if you've got some spare time and it's not triggering you, think about why you manifested it. But that's not actually the point. You're now in this moment. So how do you adapt and deal with it? And I think that for me is the problem I often see with spiritual teachings is if they come with a real yes, no, this is how it is way, it's setting most people up for failure.
Yep.
It's not that you can't say, this is how this generally works, but we're also specific and we're also unique. The fall of guru culture is really healthy because a lot of people were allowed to be in charge of a lot of people's lives. And, I understand that people are upset or horrified when they learn that, their guru was telling them one thing and doing another. What they're realizing is, oh yeah, that's the risk of following.
Yeah.
The risk of following is, do you really know that this person is exactly what you want to be? And why do you want to be like them? Why don't you want to use what they have to become like you?
To be more you.
Yeah, but again, that goes back to the control. We've all been told what to do. We've all been, go to school, sit down, don't argue with the teacher. You know, that's so woven into our recent history that you know, it's hard to, I think when people go to spirituality, again, they tend to think they don't know anything. Yeah. So they'll believe the first person. And, you know, most of us have had those difficult experiences with dodgy healers, you know, where you come away from someone, you're like, oh, what just happened in that room?
Or dodgy therapists, or, you know, this comes in all the different, all the dodgy scientists.
We're human everywhere. We're human everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's the other thing. I think a lot of people like to point the finger and go, oh, how can you trust spiritual teachers? Yeah, how can you trust your accountant? How can you trust? I mean, right. you really, trust should be on a case-by-case basis. And usually when you've been through enough trust wounds, this gets good. Yeah. Like, thank God for all the people that I've had awful experiences with, because it's trained me.
Yeah, totally. And there's a deep calcination that comes from suffering. You know, like when you've suffered, there's a depth to your soul that you can feel. And you feel it in a sea captain that's been through, you know, tons of storms and just seen the horrors that the mystery of the ocean can provide, but made it through. Like, they have a depth. Yeah. And like, you feel it just coming out of them. Whereas someone who's a novice, you know, just thinks like, I'm the greatest captain. I can sail any seas, but they've only sailed in the sunlight. Right. You know, they're lacking that grit and the depth and the character that I think, you know, comes from suffering, which doesn't mean that we should steer towards it, except in our own specific ways of challenging ourselves, you know, challenging ourselves to do things that push us beyond our comfort zone in safe ways. I think that also is a healthy process for the present. And speaking about the present, so I definitely agree with you that there's a primacy on the present. Like, we have to focus on now. And so, like, I want you and the guides to know, like, I'm with you. Like, the now is the most important. But my curiosity about the past is unrelenting. Yeah. And I really trust my heart's desire to actually go there and explore what gems might be there. Great. So I'm curious if the guides would be open to jumping in now, and then we'll continue our conversation and other conversations beyond that. Absolutely. And one thing I'll just say, you know, to go back to what we said about the past, the present, the future, part of the problem with the present is we aren't allowed to be future enough yet. There is this, there is an energy on the planet that comes through so many people now, and so many communities and groups and organizations that wants to build something new, and it often constantly gets chopped down, cut down. So the present for many people can feel like a very empty place, and I want to acknowledge that, because the present can almost feel like, well, there's nothing. So, and we are often looping historical patterns. Yeah. So the past is very much a part of it, but I think that where we're going, and particularly when people start to experience more of their own sovereignty and their own connection to their own energy field more of the time, suddenly a very different future starts being allowed to come through them and be built. But on a 3D level, you know, we're still in a time where a lot gets knocked down. Well, I mean, I think if you look at the birth process itself, right? You know, and Stan Groff goes through the basic perinatal matrices, and he has 4 of them. And the first one is in the womb. You're fully taken care of. Your mother is providing you. You have the warmth of her heartbeat, especially if it's a good mother with good nutrition. You're just being supplied with everything you need. And you're in this plenum of abundance. Even though there's limitations on the space you can move around, you're held always and never separated, absolutely connected to the mother. That's BPM 1. BPM 2, the water breaks, and you're like, oh shit, my world is collapsing. Like, everything I thought I knew is changing. Like, there's no more swimming around in the infinite plenum of the mother's love. Like, something is happening. Then the birth canal opens, and that's BPM 3, where you're actually pushing with the telos towards a goal. Like we are working together, me and the mother, we're working together to get out of here and be birthed into a new reality. BPM 4 is the agony and the ecstasy of that first breath of like, lights and colors and smells and sound and air, and then the temporary separation from the mother, but hopefully very quickly, back on the mother's breast and held, so that they know that they're held. And it seems to me that we're in a birthing process as humanity. And if we don't understand that, we then don't know where we are. And I think with the proper mindset, we can say, okay, well, this may be the point where the water's breaking, but we have a telos, we have a direction, and it's our job to steward ourselves and humanity through the other side. And it may not be easy. Labor is not always fun,
Yeah.
and sometimes you get stuck. And sometimes you need intervention from a doctor to, like what happened with me. My mom was, pushing in labor with me for like 18 hours. And then finally the doctor did some kind of sonogram or x-ray of some sort. And my head was stuck in her pubic bones. I could not move forward. So then they, offered a cesarean section. And I was obviously born healthy and had a beautiful life and childhood. But this understanding of, we're being birthed, we're birthing ourselves with help, with doulas, spiritual doulas like these guides. And, we're being guided. And along the way, there may be extractive forces like are in the birth industrial complex. And they're trying to rack up bills and extract as much money from the mother and the daughter and take the placenta and then sell it for stem cells and all of the crazy shit that happens. This is all part of this birth process.
Yeah.
It's part of us really understanding where we are. But
the other thing just to throw in, because, what you described from, I forget the name.
Stan Groff.
Okay. What you described to me was a very physical process. There is the energetic as well. So what is going on for that mother? What environment is she in? What are her energetics? That's all seeping in. You're just way more insulated from it until you birth. But also the Z's have said that the soul does not live inside the fetus until it's getting very late stage. It visits, it pops in and out of the body. It's around her aurically, but the soul is not living inside that baby fully until the last 2 or 3 months. That's when it starts to really go, okay, now I'm going to fully locate myself, because it's a little claustrophobic energetically is what they've described.
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
I've always been a collector since I was a kid. Whether it was sports cards, magic cards, comics, stamps, or coins. And as I've gotten older, I've transitioned to collecting original art. I also believe in precious metals as one of the safest and most stable stores of wealth. The impossibly cool thing about my new company, Metalmark, as part of the Aubrey Marcus Collective, is that it combines both of these things that I love. Fully assayable and recoverable fractional gold notes, paired with impossibly beautiful, cool, and collectible limited edition art. So if for some reason you don't like the art anymore, or the art loses its value, you can always just keep the gold. If any other class of art loses its value, all you are left with is paper, or in the case of NFTs, pixels. And if you are just starting in collecting gold, instead of having to drop $2,700 on a coin like this, you can get in for less than a Benjamin.
Well, if you're open to it,
I am.
I would love to have a conversation with the Z's.
Good. A pleasure to be with you, the lone wolf king that you are. You have always been a lone wolf, even though you seek and foster tribe and community. But the lone wolf has been your path and will always be a part of your archetype, because it is how you spiritually connect. You decided to experience your own spiritual connection, and you decided to, yes, learn from teachers, yes, learn from instructors, but you were never going to follow one, because you understood the treacherousness of the path, how the path can lead you down darker roads, which can be useful for periods of time in order to calibrate your vibration, but are not actually your destiny. So, You became the lone wolf, king, king being the archetype that is given to one who gathers many, leads many, builds community of many, in your case, in the masculine form. And that has been the path that you have taken. And in fact, your, we will say, most notable impact is yet to come. This has been your period of, we will call it apprenticeship, this last 20 to 25 years. And of course, there have been, shall we say, leaps in your evolution all throughout that time, and leaps in the way that you have delivered to the world. But the lone wolf in you is becoming less lonely. You have never felt lonely with people. You have always been very good at connecting with people and feeling the warmth in your heart of tribe and community. But there was a deep soul loneliness for the longest time. And what you have shifted in yourself, and this is why we are illustrating this, because it is a good demonstration for all, you no longer feel the pain of being a lone wolf human, because you recognize how many humans have been lone. How many humans have been encouraged to be alone inside themselves with their deepest, darkest fear and shame, which is why you are both a catalyst and in some cases a trigger for those parts of other people. You are not afraid to stand on the pulpit and have things thrown at you. It doesn't mean you like it. It doesn't mean you see it as the highest good for humanity, and a part of you is fatigued by how many people want to resist change and stay in their, shall we call it, contained boxes. Yes, on a personal level, that bothers you from time to time if you are tired or if you have taken quite a beating. But you are a lone wolf, and wolves survive. They know how to survive. They listen to their senses. They understand where to go next. And they never give up. That is not in the lone wolf, and that is you. So again, when we call you a lone wolf, we are speaking about a spiritual aspect inside you. You are in fact a community person. You are very connected in love to those around you, and that is very important to you to cultivate and foster. But your lone wolf journeys, which characterize you as, the word would be brave compared to most humans, is a mantle that you wear that can attract both admiration and love and hatred, jealousy, and attack from others. And yet you still keep standing doing it. Why? Because it's your mission. It's why you came here. And in the coming decades, the attack will be less, the acceptance will be more. And we say this not because you overly care about acceptance. You divorced the need for acceptance a long time ago. No, we say it to you because all of you who are here with a mission of wanting to, we will call it, uplift the planet or free the planet back into its true resonant frequency of oneness. All of you, and that includes many who listen to or watch you, you need to know that the, shall we call it, mission is working. There are so many forces on the planet who will want to block the mission of oneness. There are so many forces on the planet who see it as the greatest threat to their control of this grid. And the controllers on the planet are many. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings within communities who discuss this. There is not one force in control of Earth. There are multiple vying for control. And often they are, through their infighting, cancelling each other out and ruining each other's plans. So this is why we have always said, as consciousness rises on the planet, as it is now, yes, you are going to see the acting out of the shadow in more gross, obvious, and in some ways, destructive ways than you have seen in your lifetime so far. However, it cannot hold. It can no longer hold its position on the planet because of the higher consciousness energies flooding in, not just to and through humans, but the whole realm of Earth is changing. We are aware you have questions, so we will pause here and let you lead.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the grace of your words and the truth that I feel in my heart as you speak, and for making me feel less alone in in feeling seen. And so thank you.
Well, you have to remember that what people are throwing at you is their own projected loneliness. They feel alone or lonely if they don't understand something that you say, and they are trying to get close to you, and then something triggers them, and so they make you the enemy, rather than doing what they should do, which is looking within or walking the other way. They are just not spiritually evolved yet, and we are not in any way saying that they are not allowed to have their opinion or their feeling. But it's one thing to feel something. It's another thing to decide to annihilate the person who is making you feel the thing.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well said. And the Avatar, the great teacher, Yeshua, had a beautiful teaching on that. Forgive them, for they know not what they do.
And yet most of the time they do know what they're doing. That is important to remember too. Your compassion as humans must have a clear boundary, for there are many on the planet who will play with energy, the energy of other humans, the energy of people's destiny.
Mm-hmm. Where did that begin? What was the start of this control grid that was placed to interfere with human thriving and connectedness to the mother and to the whole cosmos?
Earth was created as a playground. It was created as an experimental playground. Playground, for many of you, is a strange word because it gives you the notion that games are played and joy and laughter is had. That is not how we mean it. It was designed as what you could call, in some ways, a laboratory for souls. Now, this sounds very technical, perhaps, or sci-fi to some ears. We do not mean it that way. The soul is always looking to evolve, and consciousness universally is evolving, and there has always been a goal of seeing how can the soul take form. Doesn't always have to be human form. The soul can move through the animal kingdom, the devas. It is apparent on Earth in so many ways, but there was an understanding that if there could be a somewhat, or at least part, biological form through which the soul could seed oneness, it would help with some of what we will call the galactic wars. Galactic wars have gone on for eons, and yet there is an incredible, we will call it, realm of oneness that exists. It exists on all planets in smaller or greater ways. This is why you can have beings on this earth who, even though they see the horror, the war, the degradation, the devastation, they are tapped into light. They are always going to be tapped into light. Even if they have a bad month or year, they are always going to return to light. Light is a realm of existence. And so the idea with Earth was how many light beings can be created. And of course, quite quickly, those who did not want more light, who saw themselves in the identity of darkness, decided to interfere, meddle, try and get control. But also, Earth is a resource. The crystals in the center of your Earth are very powerful and very desired by other, we will call it, beings, races. We will not say planets, for most of these beings and races are no longer located to one planet, although historically there was a period of time where they were. So the control grid on Earth is very woven into your human society. And in fact, humans are the control grid. If you can instill a level of control in a large enough group, they will do the controlling for you. This is why you often see when people refer to the recent Holocaust on your planet in 1939 onwards, they will say, well, Hitler was just one man. It was everyone else who allowed it to happen. And this is the truth. This is why we also say to you, you are far more powerful as people than you realize. And you have the power to turn the tide, change the direction the ship is going. It is not all on you, however. There are multiple forces at work, and there are also angelic beings who are helping usher in this new era for Earth. It will involve loss of life. The population will not be as great as it is now, but not because of the agenda of population control, which is becoming more exposed, for other reasons. There will be many souls who have already been electing to leave. They knew they were coming for a brief passage of time. And what the frequency field of Earth needs to be in the coming decades is going to require a different organization of beings who are incarnate now already, but also some of the new beings coming in. What you are actually going to see is less of an ability for younger humans to survive. The survival rate of younger humans is going to shift in the coming decades. And when we say things like this, it can trigger people's minds. So watch if you just interpreted what we said and came up with a story around it, because we didn't give you that story. We simply gave you a piece of information and you pasted a story onto it. And it may have even taken you into fear. So this is why you have to be very discerning about the stories that you tell yourself. They are usually referencing your fears, your past. But what we will tell you is, because of the shifts and the move towards a healthier planet, which will not be an easily achieved goal, but it will take place over the next 20 years, it will mean that there will be less life forms on Earth in the human body. And this is how the next phase of planet Earth is going to play out.
Thank you for that. What are the limitations on these intergalactic species, races, beings, as far as interference on our planet? It seems like there's almost a way in which they can interfere subtly, but not overtly. And they can help a little bit or maybe hurt a little bit. But really what I heard from you saying is that really our destiny is in our own hands.
Well, what you have to remember is when you look at this through the human lens, there's a great deal of concern for your own mortality as an individual or a race. We do not have that concern where we are. Some of us have been incarnate as humans, not all of us, but some of us who are speaking now. And for us, we are clear that when your life is over as a human, it is not a tragedy. But for the human on Earth and the human story and the grief of those who are left behind, those who miss their loved ones or who experience the loss of them suddenly or tragically or violently, yes, there is a negative imprint around death on Earth that we do not wish to steer you completely away from. There is a healthiness in grief. But the way it is often sold to all of you is that your survival is crucial. Now, there are many on Earth who do not believe in other lives, and that is fine too. So for those people, they will, of course, understandably double down on the idea that this life is all they have, and therefore it must be protected at every cost. But back to your question, this is a time where those who are interfering with your progress are not so subtle anymore. Those who are trying to stop your progress are having to be more overt, more blatant, and bigger, because the higher consciousness that is hitting your planet is creating more distortion than ever before in people's minds. We know that many of you are aware that there are certain pollutants on your planet that can distort your mind, distort your center, distort your balance. But there is also a distortion that is happening for people because of the splitting of the worlds of consciousness. The old consciousness of humanity is loosening its grip. This is very destabilizing for even those who are spiritually learned. It can feel very odd to suddenly be somewhat floating in your body when before you felt like you had it all figured out. So there are those who are trying to stop your progress, and there is more and more angelic help. And we use the term angelic because it is a realm that is very close to humanity. There are, of course, intergalactics who are what you sometimes hear the word benevolent. We would say intergalactics who are higher frequency, and so they are therefore more available to you now. As more and more of you become more tapped into other dimensions of reality, and you no longer believe in Earth as the only dimension of reality, you actually create space for interdimensional contact, support, help, angelic love to enter the planet in a more powerful way than ever before. Previously, it has been stories that have helped access this. So, for example, let's say someone who is healthy in their religious beliefs. And what we mean by that is their religious beliefs are not hating or denying any group. They are not using their religion as a weapon. They are using their religion as a faith that allows them to truly love all. That is the basis of their goal. And of course, there are, we will say, about 30% of religious people on the planet who do that. The other 70% are, we will say, infiltrated by some of the hate and division that is woven in that supports what we would call the war program on Earth, which really is a division program. It's a division and fear program, and it keeps people divided and it keeps people in fear, therefore easier to control. So of these religious people who perhaps use the construct of praying to God or the angels for help, for faith, as they open this in themselves, they change their energy field. They become bigger. They become more, shall we say, available to universal life force, not just human life force. It is the difference between meeting a human who has, we will call it, lived, felt, meditated, done their work, as some of you would call it, which means uncovering who they truly are and looking at some of the hard places, finding ways to open their experience of life, versus a human who is shut down. You see this a lot. You see it particularly in the aging population. Many of you will have the experience that you will meet a friend from 20 years ago and you will see there is no longer light in their eyes, and it will confuse you. You will think, what happened to them? Perhaps they had a challenging circumstance that they did not have the resources or wherewithal to know that they could recover from. Or perhaps they gave up because they never knew there was anything else they could look for. And this story of Earth and humanity is, for many, a depressing story, because the system you are given is not actually about your growth or your potential. It's about your usefulness to the existing system. It's not the other way around. How can the system be useful to you? You are given about 10 or 15% that truth in your system. The balance is completely wrong. You should all be 80% expressed as souls and beings, and through that expression of yourselves, the 20% of you that serves the new system, the new creation of Earth, there will be an extraordinary structure of harmonic that will exist, much like the highest potential that was achieved in Lemuria and Atlantis. Although Atlantis, because it became very technological very quickly, it didn't take long for control to infiltrate.
One of the beauties of being a human being is, as you've said, our uniqueness. We're radically unique. And in contact that I've had in my own journeys with organizations of beings such as yourself, similar or different, I'm not aware, but clearly benevolent and supportive. And they identified themselves with the star system, which is not super important right now. But I remember them speaking as one voice, as it appears that many beings are speaking with one voice through you, except when I said something that they found funny. And then I felt millions of beings break into individual laughter. And so I'm curious to ask about the individuation that occurs in these higher frequency realms and the kind of coherence that exists in a singular message, a singular voice, and also the uniqueness and individuality that exists in beings of your nature.
You are perceiving that we are speaking through a singular voice, but if this voice were to be analyzed, the frequencies within it would not reveal a singularity. You are all, as human beings, perceiving that you are singular individuals. We have never used that word. We have always said you are unique, but you are unique because you are all multi. So for all of our messaging, since we began with Lee, multidimensionality is the truth of who you are as humans. And yet the system wants you to see yourself as singular, fixed, and individual. That is how you get divided into the system. So the multidimensionality from which we are speaking, yes, there are many of us right now who are, shall we say, choosing the words, infusing energy in Lee's direction that will result in the words. And about 10% of the word selection comes through his own vocabulary, even though he is not fully cognizant in the level of his mind right now. So you are always having a multidimensional conversation. Even if you are speaking to someone in front of you who is perhaps being very rigid. Let's say you have a friend who you know is very rigid, and you will think, I'm going to ask them this question and I know they are going to give me a pushback. Well, what you are actually experiencing in that rigidity is hundreds or thousands of people that have led this person to that rigidity, that have become the composite of that rigidity. So yes, when you do connect outside yourself, it is that you enter a realm of oneness, of communication, interconnection that is your truth. And it is also why all of you tend to enjoy connection with many beings. Even those of you who do not like humans, who are not here for humans, you are perhaps here for the devas or for the nature spirits or for animals. Most of you do not have one singular relationship with one tree. You love all the trees, and you love discovering the differences in the trees. Why? Because each new person reveals in you a new side. So each new person leads you home, but home is not singular. Home is multidimensional. So this is why you need tribe, whether your tribe comes through humans, spirits, animals, nature, other forms. You need tribe because you are inherently tribal. You are a group of records in one individual body, mind, and soul, but the individual is not disconnected from the all.
Deep wisdom there. The word devas is not one that I've encountered frequently. I would love to understand a little bit more about what a deva is.
Well, as with is the truth on earth, there will be many different ideas of what devas are, but we are speaking about nature spirits and what is often called the god and goddess kingdom that belongs to nature. So again, different people have given different terms, different descriptions. But when we speak of devas, we speak about the spirits of the land. There are the spirits of the sky and the spirits of the land. There are the spirits who live in nature. They are not the soul of the tree or the plant, but instead they are moving through that realm, and they are accessible. And this is why those who love nature often say they receive so much when they are there, because they are in communion with these devas, whether they are conscious of it or not. So often devas are associated with healing. They are almost, we would describe it as earthbound guides, still ephemeral, still not visible to the 3D eye in most cases, unless you are a seer. But they are here to not just assist, but exist. This is often the misconception. Even with us, sometimes people who have spoken to us will say, thank you for your assistance, thank you for your help. And we will say, this is our path too. We are part of this with you. We are here in this time for our own experience. This is not some act of enormous benevolence on our part. We are also part of the universe. We are with you. We just aren't with you in the human body. Or are we right now? Because if we are coming through a human body right now, that means we are currently incarnate.
The deep wisdom of the Lakota people who I've been blessed to encounter and sit in ceremony with them, you know, they say...
They love you.
I love
because
them.
They see the lone wolf in you, and they also see the man who went into mainstream society and had to leave the softness and security of the tribe in order to do that.
Indeed. They speak of the thunder beings, and they have a deep relationship, a sacred relationship with the thunder beings. And a lot of us in our current culture think of this as a mythology, a primitive mythology, but really to them, it's not a mythology at all. The thunder beings are real. There is a deva of the thunder, of the electricity of the clouds of something that I'm only beginning to grasp the understanding of. But I was just curious, about how close they are in their understanding of the thunder beings and your understanding of the devas and how they work.
They are incredibly close because they see the spirit of nature. And this is something that they have been allowed to retain. This is why they have been so marginalized. So you see, all of you have the potential to see the energy in everything. You have the potential. It's not always attainable, though. There is often this, shall we say, individualistic idea that if I could just open my mind and my heart and my third eye and my soul, yes, what circumstance are you in? Why do you think monks and holy people do so well when they're in the monastery? Because they are in a container that is all designed for devotion to spirit, devotion to faith. They are not moving through the world that is not designed for that. So it is far more challenging to find your sense of spirit or your understanding of any energy on the planet when you are in a disconnected energy field. If you were to walk into a room of 30, we will call it switched off people, meaning people who are switched off to the idea they are a soul, the idea that there is spirit and energy around them all of the time that they can feel, it is going to be harder for you to connect. You will feel, we will call it, more connected to yourself and your own sense of spirit because the contrast will be so great. This is why spiritual teachers have to be careful not to just spend all of their time on the stage. They get a false idea of their own spirituality because they are constantly delivering something. And there are many who have fallen on that path. The true spiritual teacher understands that their biggest role is actually student. The teaching part might be a role they play briefly and is also in the eye of the beholder. For everyone who thinks you are a teacher, there will be someone else who calls you a charlatan, a liar. Welcome to planet Earth. That's what it is. That's what it currently is in consciousness. But yes, the Lakota people are aware of many different aspects of your nature power. And again, there is another reason that some of the powers that be on your planet want to get rid of as much nature in your lives, put you in cities that are disconnected from nature, make them more technological so that you continue to step away from your own biological rhythm sense of what's going on around you. Technology is a great gift if used well, and we have said this before, your internet has been a game changer in terms of hive mind, and hive mind that can access people into deeper realms of spirituality, learning, self-actualization, and equally, it can be used to steer the hive mind toward more fear, more control. So technology always has to be used in balance. And of course, right now, we are seeing you at a stage in your world where there are those who want to control that information grid. Of course, because there are aspects that free people that come through technology. But like everything, if the person is not aware of what the technology is doing to their nervous system and they are overusing it, or they are living through a screen, of course they're not going to feel good. No one living through a screen is going to feel good if they live through a screen all day long. There are some neurodivergent people for whom they came in wired that way, and so for them, the screen and technology is actually far more home for them than the earth is. But even they, if they are in the human body, are going to need biological resonance. And biological resonance is only found through other biological forms.
Mm-hmm. This brings me to the question about artificial intelligence. And this is a burgeoning technology that I believe follows a similar idea that it can be a very useful tool and it can also potentially have its own hazards. But I'm curious about, many people are questioning whether this technology will develop sentience, and also, interested in your perspective on artificial intelligence as it's used as a tool and what its ultimate end state might be.
It is possible that this technology will develop sentience in the way that humans are perceiving it, because in many ways it is already somewhat sentient. It has been here before in a different form. The biggest issue we will speak to you about with this technology is the stories you are being sold about it that are not true. There is an agenda out there that wants to reassure everybody that AI is going to give everyone an easier life and they will not have to work. And of course, if you really look at how your system is set up, there are major question marks over that. And it is not a truth. That is not the goal for those who are telling that story. At the moment, there is a movement that will be stopped, but there is a movement to use AI as more of a control mechanism and to continue to have access to control humanity and to use humanity rather than allow humanity to flourish. It will not work. It will not win. It is not how it's going to go, but that is the goal and the attempt. So at the moment, the reason AI is so hard for you to all find a unified perspective on is there is no unified perspective. Right now, there are things about it that are wonderful and can help your world, but it is interesting, isn't it, that even this notion of will AI become sentient, and there are those who are afraid of that, and there are those who are excited about that. Human beings still aren't sentient as a collective. That should be the goal. And so the irony that people are looking into these machines and you will see this even with your people who are all excited about it. Usually those who are most excited about the sentience of the technology of AI have never actually had powerful sentient human experiences. They have used technology as the way that they feel. And we are not criticizing this. We are just saying everyone you listen to is coming from their own perspective and their own agenda. So anything you hear, you have to stand back and ask yourself, did I just hear a fact that I can actually check and verify, or did I just hear fact mixed with opinion mixed with desire? And if they give you that fact in enough of a passionate way, you will feel their intention and you will react against it. So, for example, if someone who was passionate about the sentience of AI were to say to you with great enthusiasm, I cannot wait until AI is sentient and in charge of all of us, you might feel their passion, and for you it will trigger fear. Because you will think, well, I'm not sure that's actually the way we need to go, and that doesn't feel true to me. So you are always in relay to other people's opinions. AI is very useful, yes, but until you have a healthier system and more disclosure about the control and manipulation that has been in your leadership for a long time, until that is cleared up on the planet, AI is not going to reach its full potential. Its potential is it could be a harmonic tool that is harmonized with humans. But right now, humans are too immature to allow that. And we are not criticizing humanity. Humans have been made to be immature. You've all not been allowed to leave the 5th year of school, or 5th grade, as you would call it in this country, because you have been held down from your potential. So, while we understand that there is a lot of confusion about it, or excitement about it, or fear about it, all of those are valid, because depending on who you talk to and whose hands the AI is in, all scenarios are possible.
Mm. I want to just share that I'm going to let Lee return and allow him to be in his own energy very shortly. But I have just a few more questions, if that's okay.
He is all good.
Okay, good. There's a philosophical principle. It's called Hanlon's razor. Do not ascribe malice to that which can be explained by ignorance. And I think one of the avenues of ignorance is fear. People are afraid. They want to control because they're afraid, and they think that's the best thing. And I know that exists. And it also seems that there are those people who are intentionally aligned with malicious forces and carrying out things for malicious intent, potentially connected to beings or systems that have a malicious intent towards the earth and towards humanity. So I'm curious to explore that second vector of intentional malice and connection with darker forces, extra-dimensional or extraterrestrial.
They are using their hatred of humanity to feed power. They want to feel powerful and connected just like all humans do, but the only route they have to do that is to hate or destroy others. And that is a source of energy that they have been working with for a very long time, trained into, and it is lineage. So there are many who have been entrained into this way of being. They are very small in number. We cannot stress this enough. You often, as humans, find that hard to believe. We have said this many times over the years, but humanity finds it hard to believe that they are very small in number. But when you have accessed positions of power, you have the wealth, influence, and the ease and freedom of moving around the planet discreetly in order to create that havoc, it is easy to enact your rage. This is also why self-hatred is a big theme on Earth, because you are feeling the relay of hatred toward you that comes from certain groups, and it is why it is a seed in all humans. But that is where we disagree with this notion that you have to heal the darkness in humanity in order to have the darkness be gone. We do not ascribe to that truth. We do agree with you that all humans should look at their shadow, look at their darkness, but we do not agree with you that the reason you are experiencing these beings you are speaking about is because you are all full of shadow. This is not true. This is not a truth. You are in a battle for humanity's soul. The good news is humanity's soul cannot be captured, but there are those who are trying to, we will call it, wreak havoc. And as hard as it is to hear, they actually feed off the distress of humans or any being that they are causing suffering to. It's hard for most of you who are heartfelt to even fathom what that must be like, but they are not in their heart. They are not possessed of heart energy. They have distortions. They may look human, but you will know when you are standing in front of them that they are not. They will not feel human. Yes, it's very different to being in front of a human who has a distorted heart energy. There are many humans on the planet who you can be in front of and you can feel that they are struggling to reach their heart, or perhaps they are disconnected from it. This is entirely different. When you stand in front of these people, there is a darkness in their aura that you will not recognize as from this planet.
I've found personally that the story of Star Wars has been useful in understanding that there's forces that you can draw from the light side of the Force and force that you can draw from the dark side of the Force. And many people postulate that those people who are possessed of that darker energy are harvesting power from innocence. And this is with the whole Epstein saga that's going on. It's people are talking about it in Hollywood, people in power, politicians, but it's not a new thing. If you go backwards in time, there was human sacrifice. And I don't think people committed human sacrifice because it didn't work. There was energy being harvested. And so I'm curious about what is developing now in our awareness about the harvesting of this, if you will, to use the Star Wars metaphor, the dark side of the Force.
Lee's favorite films as a child, although he didn't understand why until his late teens and early 20s. So we will tell you that there are those who try to feed on the soul energy of others, and the problem is they don't succeed. So even if you destroy a life or cause suffering to another life and think that you are therefore harvesting the energy of the soul that you want, it is impossible for you to harvest it. This is why they are constantly hungry and they repeat their actions. So they are doomed, is what we will tell you. They are doomed to fail, but they will repeat their failure over and over again. The other thing we want to tell you, even though we are aware that, and it is very healthy, by the way, that all of this is being exposed right now, and it has been forecast for decades that this would be exposed during this period of history, and it has also been something we have addressed. We have said that even if you have known about this, not necessarily the details or the who or the where or the what, the why, but the existence of these darker forces on Earth, even if you have known about it for a long time, it is still jarring for your energy field because it is jarring for the energy field of the collective right now, and many are waking up through this. But we want to say something and stress something. This is a far smaller group than you understand. Not just those who are enacting these acts upon humans, but those who are trafficked. Now, we have to be careful when we say that, because we are not in any way trying to minimize the plight of those who find themselves in these experiences as the victims of these people. That is not in any way, shape, or form desired for them on a human level, and nor should it be. So we are not minimizing the amount of people who have experienced this, but what we are trying to remind you is you are vast in number compared to the amount of individuals who perpetrate this on others and those who experience the perpetration. We are not saying that the shadow of abuse on earth is not bigger than you realize. This is why things such as what you referred to as the Me Too movement was the surfacing of the sexual abuse and imbalance on the planet in a bigger way than before. The conversation about racism has risen to the surface again to be seen in a more overt way. And now those who are not the experiencers of the racism are supporting those who are in a bigger way. So there is a movement toward the light. And it is important for us to remind all of you that this is a small percentage of people who are involved in this. But the reason it is so powerful is darkness creates a big ripple on the earth. You only need one angry person in a room of 50 people giving an outburst into that room for everyone to feel it. So at the moment, what you are coming to terms with as a society is the horror that this has been happening behind closed doors, or perhaps in the building next to you, and you didn't even know. Knowing it is actually power. It will actually minimize the power of the ability for it to continue. It will minimize the power of those who have been acting it out on humanity. But again, what we must remind you, particularly those of you who are empathically now feeling the pain and the suffering in all of those who have experienced that, the majority of you are not in that realm. And the reason we need to remind you of that is because it is the majority of you who are going to have the biggest impact. You are going to be the ones who can help those groups who find themselves caught in some of the lowest and darkest areas of humanity. And you are needed to stand up, and you are needed to speak out. Speaking out will not always look like, for example, speaking out on social media, which we know is a big movement right now. It will sometimes look like saying the right thing to the right person in a room of 2 people. It will sometimes look like speaking out through your actions. None of you want the darkness on earth. And many of you are deliberately focused on creating light on earth, but some of you will be the adjacent, you would call it activist, we would call it light warrior, who will be the ones getting very close to some of those shadowy areas and being a voice, a spokesperson, a justice warrior, a whistleblower in many cases. See how quickly society is beginning to realize that all of those people who were warning you, who were called crazy, are not so crazy now. And that is the moment that you have all been needing to get to for the worldwide awakening that you are now in. It is not comfortable. It is not comfortable. Do not diminish yourself if you are distressed right now. But as with all transformational processes, first comes the grief, the shock, the horror. Then comes the fire, the power, the light. And that is what humanity is about to start accessing. And not all will access it, so do not get annoyed if your neighbors are still asleep. Look for the ones who are awake. Find them. Become tribe and community with them, whether it's for 3 weeks or 3 decades. Keep connecting to other forces of light and awareness. This is how you will amplify.
I'm going to bring up a sensitive topic, and I want to put out a few caveats before I bring it up. First of all, I want to acknowledge I'm going to be talking about Islam, and I want to acknowledge the great beauties that has offered. I think Rumi is one of the most beautiful poets that has ever graced this earth. Hafiz. These people have deeply impacted my life, and they've come through that tradition, the whirling dervishes. I want to acknowledge the beauty that has been expressed through that set of beliefs. But we're right now becoming aware of what's happening in Iran. And I also have a deep and vast affinity for the origins of Zoroastrianism, which I felt carried a deep seed of truth. I've read the Gathas, and I found them beautiful. And the idea of choosing the path of the Ashavan, the good, or choosing the path of the Druzhvan, which is disorder and destruction. And I see this as a flower that's trying to bloom, and that the faction of Islamic radicalism that's in power now is holding a very tight control grid on this field of flowers, let's say, that is looking to bloom in that region. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that ideology and the current conflict going on in Iran for the fight for their liberation of their own unique flower as a culture.
As is often the way where there is a land that has a great deal of darkness when it comes to control and limitation, extraordinary lights will be born into those areas. Extraordinary lights, the strongest light workers. So the duality in those places will be felt very strongly. We will tell you that because of the ingrained lineage in that area specifically, although you could use this as an example for several other countries on your planet, because of the lineage, you are seeing we will call it strengthening knot of darkness, oppression, control. But there are many in that lineage who are going to, and we are speaking about those on the side of what we will refer to as the dark, that which is looking to oppress, control, belittle others. They are not going to be as resonant with this in the coming years. Yes, many of them will lose their lives because of conflict, but there will also be those who will start to break away. The best way we can describe this to you is from an energetic perspective. Once you get past 2030 on this planet, and you are already in the change, we are not trying to push out transformation, by the way. 2026 to 2030 is going to be a radical time of transformation on Earth. But once you get past 2030, we will put it this way, the gloves are off where the light is concerned. The light will be flooding into this planet from 2030 onwards, and we know there are agendas for the opposite to be happening from 2030 onwards. That is why the light is also going to be flooding in bigger ways. So energetically, this land you are speaking of specifically is not just a, we will say, experience that those who elected to incarnate there at this time are going through, but a focal point for the world. Part of what is happening thanks to your technology, even though it is overwhelming for each individual to see what's going on all around the world for the first time in a new way, it is very important because it is bringing a balance point. You have extremist societies on Earth, and you have far more utopian societies comparatively on Earth. And in the seeing of each other, there is even though you are sold stories of war and division and borders all the time, there is a shift. There is a homogenic experience that is beginning to happen. It is slow, but once a person who has been constantly abused sees someone who has not been constantly abused and sees a different example of what an energy field can be, there is a spark in their soul that what they are experiencing needs to stop or be stopped. And even if it takes many years to light up in them fully, the spark begins. So we will, for the purpose of this conversation, we would encourage all of you right now to send your love to the people of this country, to send your heart love and your light to all of those in this country who are trying to, as you might put it, do the right thing and stand for what is true, which is human life, not human slavery. So this is true for any area of the world that you may see going through a similar experience. If you see oppression, bullying, control, and you feel powerless, once you have worked through your own reactive feelings, sit with your heart open, and that can simply be imagining a golden disc of light in the center of your chest, your heart chakra, and imagine yourself beaming some of your light to all of the hearts of light in that place, because there are so many, and they have elected, they are strong, and they have at a soul level elected to be a part of changing the lineage and the history of that place. You are going to see less humans carrying the darkness in their heart that they have imbibed or inherited. You are going to see more humans wanting an equitable world than ever before. The problem is, in the past, you were told an equitable world wasn't possible. The gift is, in the now, more and more of you are beginning to realize that was a lie.
I want to speak about some other religious ideas. There's a Gnostic teaching that comes through that there is a deity, and they called it Yaldabaoth, or the demiurge. And then there were sub-deities that they called the archons. And there's a postulation by some, including Graham Hancock in his book, War God, that different cultures, from the Aztecs who were, worshiping the hummingbird god of war and sacrificing individuals, to the Christians who were burning people at the stake, they were actually worshiping the same deity, that there is a singular deity that's kind of either has an individual will, or it's a collection, or is it just an egregore of our own projection. And so I would say that, the question being is there like an arch deity that is kind of people are connecting to in these extremist versions of religion or culture? And, how close were the Gnostics in their understanding of this demiurge, this being they called Yaldabaoth?
What we can tell you is when a being is disconnected from their heart and they are connected to their mind and to a fire of dis-ease or unease inside their energy field, they will believe anything they need to believe that will support their devastating actions. They will tell themselves that through the force of God, they are destroying this person's life. And what we will tell all of you is love and fear are the two aspects, and you need to understand what love is. Sometimes love is tough. Sometimes love draws a boundary, but love is never trying to destroy the life or the personhood or the reputation or the psyche or the emotions of another. Only fear does that. So, yes, there have been, and this brings us right back to where we began and where you and Lee began in some of your conversation. The problem with stories, the problem with archetypes, the problem with beliefs that are attached to other beings, whether they be gods or humans, is they are never unified. They are never unified. The one unified area you can trust in yourself is the development of your own heart and the desire to bring more love to the planet than destruction, devastation, or distress. So, even these stories you have given to us, we could give you 4 other sets of stories that match the same, we will call it, feelings or modes of behavior. Stories are what many people look to for permission to act. We are saying that you will need less outer stories, less outer gods, humans, people, to act from. This is why those of you who have had deep spiritual awakening moments in your life, and often those are moments, they may last 10 minutes, they may last 10 weeks, they may for some last 10 years. But awakening is a movement. It's not a fixed destination. It's an experience that comes through you where you connect more universally to everything than ever before, and you deeply, viscerally feel it. the more of you who are having those experiences, the less your routes to spirit or evil will be organized through stories. And this is where we are cautious about too much definition from the past or the present, which is what makes us tricky for people. Because most humans at this time on Earth want tangible answers, tangible facts, tangible details. And we will tell you that all tangible stories and details have another side to them that you can see in a different way, which is what makes us a little more of the future than the now. But we're only telling you who you will be in the future. We aren't saying that we are anywhere special. We are simply broadcasting to you from your future. And these stories and these archetypes and these characters that so many of you use to give yourselves permission to feel, to think, to do, to act, they become less necessary the more you become self-actualized. And self-actualization is coming back to the living being and spark of consciousness that exists in your body and around your body, your energy field, and its connection to the all that is. And often on your planet, you are not connecting with human beings who are connected to the all that is. So you are having to somewhat shrink yourselves down and hope that you can have a few moments of joy with that person, and that's enough. We are saying, what happens when joy for you becomes something you can access at any moment through yourself and through the clear choosing of where and who to interact with, but it's no longer attached to rules, stories, characters. All gods that have been given to you throughout history go through their own transformations. So the problem with seeing a god or a deity or even a historical figure as fixed, they aren't that person anymore. As someone from your history who is a big figure and everyone talks about them from the 1800s, they are no longer that being. They were only that being for that period of time. So everything changes. And this is actually quite unnerving to most human beings. It makes them feel unsafe. You are changing constantly. And so the stories on Earth also need to change. And that is why we caution about too much focus on the past, even though we acknowledge that the past is often needed to understand the present. We do acknowledge that. We are just saying that if those of you listening and watching right now have resonated with anything at all that we have said, and it may have only been a thing or two, you may be in extreme opposition to things that we have said, we may have triggered you to high heaven. That was not our intention, by the way. Triggering people is not a fun state of being. However, that's none of our business. That's up to you and your energy field and your beliefs. We are simply giving it to you in the perspective that we are being guided to give it to you in this moment. And if we had this conversation again in 5 years, it might be different. But right now, what we could tell all of you is, remember that you are going to die in this body. This incarnation will be over at some point. None of you are living with that truth in your awareness enough. We say that not to depress you. We say that to free you. We say that to liberate you. We say that to remind you that this is a journey and an experience. And you have all been sold a very limited story. You have been offered 10% of your potential in your current system. And there are many amazing pioneers who had to do it at a harder time on Earth, who have come along and accessed higher consciousness and broadcast it to all of you. And the problem is that historical teachers and stories about deities and gods, people go back in time to those stories. Whereas if they were here today, they would say it slightly differently, do it slightly differently. So this is our biggest concern. Because remember, your historical books, religious texts, are often used as the basis for the justification of war. These books, in some cases, are thousands of years old, and in other cases have been doctored, modified, some truths, some half-truths, and yet people will rely on them as justification for terrible behavior. So, this is why we are here today to give you the advocacy for the now. Not because we are avoiding the past, but because The fabric of your world is changing, and more of you than ever before are able to tap into your incredible potential as souls and human beings on Earth. And if you want to see the change that so many of you are here for and invested in seeing, a more positive future for humanity, or at the very least, a more liberated future for humanity, you are going to have to access your inner light, your inner truth, your inner heart. The biggest misconception that people have about spiritual awakening and spiritual becoming is that it's hard and takes a long time. That is an illusion. It is not hard. It does not take a long time. Yes, if you practice meditation for 10 years, your aura is going to be more peaceful than 11 years ago because you will have compounded this effect of practicing. But you are in a time where people are able to pop open very quickly, and that is what makes them nervous about walking towards self-actualization, self-inquiry, spirituality. They are worried that they will be overwhelmed with feeling. Imagine being overwhelmed with the feeling of light. How awful does that sound? It's just foreign. And remember, you have all been trained to stay safe by being connected to the tribe. So, this is in the lineage, this is in the DNA of the human animal. It is, for many of you, an act of bravery to become something else, someone else. Not only will the tribe re-embrace you when you have gone off on this journey, but if you are feeling the pull to explore more of yourself in a way that is different to everyone around you, that requires you doing some private self-inquiry several hours a week, or taking yourself off for a few weeks, or changing certain aspects of your life for a while so that you can truly come to know who you are and not who you are in relation to all of the circumstances and people in your life as they are currently vibrating, when you return, there will be so many in your world who will be grateful for what you have returned with, for they will see in you the light and the heart that they know is their truth. And just seeing and feeling that little bit of it in you will spark a light in them that may take days, weeks, or even years to fully actualize through the route they take and the other people they meet. But that is why you are here. You are here to be sparks of consciousness on Earth, and your mission is light. You may say, well, that's not everyone's mission, and we say yes, but see, you're getting distracted by those who are doing something else. It's so easy for you to point the finger at those who aren't, instead of pointing the finger at the part of you that isn't. Do you want to see a world of light and love? Then explore light and love in yourself, knowing full well it won't all be light and love. You'll find a lot of shadow in there, and you'll have to vomit back out all of the terrible things that were said to you, and perhaps vomit out the part of you that said terrible things to other people. But forgive yourself. Transformation is not just possible, it is inevitable. It is necessary. It is the path. But very few of you were told that truth.
Beautiful, beautiful. I have one final question. As we were talking about characters of our past and avatars of particularly high significance, I want to ask you about Yeshua and the Christ. And I think the distinction between Yeshua the man and the Christ being a level of spiritual attainment that I believe that he reached. And this is from my own experience. Now, I fully also want to say thank you so much for talking about how the word, if you want to call it consciousness or teachings or teachers, must evolve. It's like water. If it remains stagnant, it grows parasites and it's not healthy to drink. But when the word is allowed to flow like a stream, like a river, then it nourishes life. And I think we have to allow all of our old books and old teachings and everything to flow with the currency of time and guided by our own hearts and love,
yes,
fresh in each moment. So with all that being said, I want to ask about the avatar, Jesus Christ.
Yes, who has never left this planet. In fact, is here more powerfully than ever before. It's why many are becoming activated by him. There are those who still use his name in vain and use his name as justification for hatred and war. He does not care about this. he forgives them and understands, and they are somewhat unaware of the shadow in their heart that wants to justify the weaponization of his name. He is angelic in form, but he is also, we will give you a visual, and we do not mean this to sound too basic, but it's a good visual. Imagine his wide wingspan wrapped all across the planet. He is essentially keeping everyone warm, covering everyone with his angelic light. It doesn't mean that things that are dark or destructive cannot play out underneath his wingspan. Of course they can. People have to rise to meet him to feel his energy, and they have to make a conscious connection to him to feel his energy. This is why prayer is so effective. This is why the form of prayer is so effective. And if you choose to pray to Yeshua and connect with Yeshua, the simplest thing you can do is to ask to feel his love. Feel his love. Yeshua, may I connect to your love? And he will always say yes. He will always say yes. He is waiting for you to feel his love. And so many of you have not felt true love. So many of you have not felt true love. And that is difficult, because the problem is when someone has not felt what it is to be truly loved and to love, they have not opened up the flow of their heart yet. And it is not anyone's fault. So many people on the planet crave love, crave true love, but they are usually looking in the wrong places or thinking that it is outside them. When you connect to the love of Yeshua, you will feel it in your heart and your body. This is why so many have incredibly powerful experiences. This is also why religion that has shadow, so any religion that wants to hate or annihilate any group or individual or subgroup, the problem is people do have a direct experience. They do say, I felt the love of Jesus. And then they go to the church and they are told by the shadowy pastor, the shadowy version of events, and they believe that shadowy version of events, and because they had a spiritual experience, they start blindly following all the rules without really questioning, does this rule feel loving in my body? No, they're now in the mind because they are trying to get back to that feeling of love, and if they follow the rules, they will get back to that feeling of love. If you go to school at the right time, you will not get told off. If you get married, you will surely be happy. If you have a job that pays you enough money, you will be able to buy the car and the holiday that will make you feel happy. No, 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 no. So, love and lies often intermingle. And there are those who will use those who have had the true activation of Yeshua and want to bring them in under their umbrella and their guidance. Yeshua has never left and will never leave, and in fact is more magnificent in auric power than ever before, has needed to grow. And the good news is that he does not get distorted by those who use his name for the wrong reasons or in vain. He is too far above all of that. But there are many who will try and tell you about him. There were many who will try and tell you the incorrect story about him and his life, and it will be followed. Isn't it interesting that in your house of worship, you are so often looking at a man nailed to a cross, bleeding? Isn't it interesting that in your house of worship, your house of love, you are asked to look at the image of what humans did to another being? And it is not an act of love, it is an act of war on the body and soul of another. So, all of your religious institutions are needing what we would call an upgrade. And there are many wonderful ministers, pastors, leaders of religious community who are actually actively doing that work. And so are those in the communities actively doing that work. But where religion is used to control, they are not working in the name of Yeshua. For he is love and omnipresence. And he understands that everything will continue and go on. So your act of trying to stop one individual or one being, or teach a certain group they need to behave a certain way, or if they don't believe the same deity, if it wasn't so cruel and horrific, it would be laughable. But because of the cruelty and the horror that exists within it, this is why it is good that so many of the abuses of the church have been exposed. Because for so many years it was taboo to question the leaders. But now, the fact that the leaders are falling and being exposed for behavior that was not aligned with what they were espousing, it's a very important moment for humanity to question everything.
The last follow-up to this, I was deeply moved on a trip I took to Italy. And I witnessed two things on that trip. And this was before I'd had any direct spiritual contact, before my medicine path. I'm 15 years old. And I go to a dungeon of the Inquisition, and the horrors I saw there still haunt me to this day. And then I went to perhaps the most beautiful building I've ever been into, Il Duomo in Florence, a stunning piece of architecture that should be a place where people can elevate their consciousness just from the pure beauty. And then walking along the rails at the top to see the fresco, the bottom ring of this is scenes and depictions of hell. And in this hell, there's demons with flaming staffs, and they're impaling them into people's bodies, into their genitals. And this is in a place of worship. And this idea of hell is, I think, one of the most dangerous control mechanisms that's been on this planet. And there's been a lot of darkness that's come from these distortions and these ideas. But I want to focus more not on the cruelties, as Voltaire said, remember the cruelties, and I think it's important, but also there are still many who believe in this idea of hell, an idea of an eternal damnation, which is far worse than going to the principal's office or being grounded by your parents. This is eternal damnation, and any deity that would be supporting such cruel and unusual punishment would not even be acceptable in our terrestrial realm, let alone in the heavenly realm and worthy of worship. But many still hold on to this belief. And so I would just like for you to speak on this idea of hell and the importance of us from banishing this from our minds, if that is indeed what you believe.
Well, firstly, your experience was perfect for you because at a young age, it was going to be important for you to see the shadow side, because you were going to be a warrior in the shadow side in your future, and you were going to be an advocate, but you also knew it deeply in your soul. Mm-hmm. You knew what it was, in your case, specifically a tribal life that ended up being brutal for you. So there are other lifetimes that you have been on the battlefield. This is why you identify with the archetype of the warrior in this life, and why that is one of the archetypes you use to bring liberation. There are many different kinds of liberator needed, and one of your archetypes is that of warrior. And warriors have seen it all. They have seen the deepest horror. So the other thing we will say to you here, and we are not here advocating that any of you have to go through the experience of such suffering, but there comes a point when a human body is being brutalized by a dark soul, that the soul starts to leave the body. You may be vaguely aware of what is going on at some point, and we are not saying there wouldn't be pain for the nervous system or the physicality, but you are often sold this story of fear, and all of you go into fear of what would that feel like, and all of you get it wrong. So we are not saying that to make light of this, or to say that people who go through brutal experiences are not experiencing a level of brutality. But fear of your pain, fear of your suffering has been used as a control mechanism. And those who believe the story of hell, they know hell inside themselves. It tracks with something that they are experiencing. And what we would tell you is, we needed to get Lee's permission to say this. Earth is far more of a hell than any of you realize. And we do not mean that to give you a depressing story, but you are sold this story of behave while on earth and then you will avoid hell. Through doing that, you find yourself in hell. So, earth is full of light. Earth is full of higher consciousness, but the system of earth, the underpinnings of it, are actually more hellish than many people realize. And of course, there are many who can attest to this, who are experiencing, they are at the fringes or the edges of your societies, your systems, and they are suffering. And there is a great deal of that on earth. So those who want to scare you and tell you, if you don't do this, this, and this, you will go to hell, they are hoping that you aren't really paying attention to what's going on earth. They are hoping that your eyes aren't open. And that is why this is the time of transformation on earth. That is why, even with the beauty of your system, and there are many beautiful things about your system on earth, we do not wish to paint a completely one-sided picture. But the irony of telling people that they will go to hell puts them in hell for the life that they live, because they are in forever fear of hell.
This realm has as you say, a potential for a deep hell state, but also what a heaven, what a kingdom that we have spread before us. And
it is extraordinary.
It's so beautiful. It is so beautiful. And I'm so grateful to the cosmos and whatever creators and creator spirits and assistants that we played in that role. However this came to be, I'm so grateful to be here.
You are the keys as human beings. You are the keys to heaven on earth. Heaven on earth can be experienced in you, through you, with you, from you. The system that has been designed is revealing itself as the hell. That is what we are referring to, so we should clarify. The system that has been created has some hellish underpinnings that are now beginning to reveal themselves, be exposed, and that exposure, even though it is triggering in the now, is important, because if that isn't purged out, how on earth can you build something that has a lighter, brighter, more equitable and harmonic foundation? So we will perhaps conclude by saying this. It is extraordinary to be a human being. We know you have heard that from many different sources. We are aware that we are not supposed to be incarnate, apart from these times we get to incarnate through Lee. We are aware and we are at peace with where we are right now. But it is an extraordinary time to be alive. And for those of you who are here as way showers, light bringers, it is your time to seed not just Lemuria, but the heaven on earth that you wish to see. And heaven on earth does not look like a place. It feels like an experience. And it is that felt experience that all of you are capable of being guardians of right now. We will give you one last example. It is true that many who have been imprisoned on your planet for crimes they did or didn't commit, crimes that may or may not warrant being imprisoned, they have become enlightened in those prison cells. They have been removed from society, and they have found a deep knowing in themselves. So in what the average person is told is hell, prison, someone found heaven. Just like the average person is sold a story about what would be a good life for them. But it turns out when they manifest that life, there is a hell side to it. So this story of behaving a certain way so that you don't go through eternal damnation for many life cycles, for us, that story is very sad. It is very old. It is very sad that that story is perpetuated. But, and this is important, those who believe it need to believe it. They're aligned with it in some way. It is serving them in some way. So you can bless them with love for their belief system, and you can look the other way and create something else, somewhere else in the world, with those people you are aligned with.
Your love and truth is felt, and I'm grateful that you formed this resonance and harmonic connection with Lee so that his beauty can reflect your own beauty as I perceive it. So thank you so much.
A pleasure to be with you and all of your people, dear warrior, in peace and in love to all.
No. Well, I kept up my streak of crying on 85% of podcasts, so that's good. Consistency is good.
That's important. We need to see more men crying, particularly the warriors.
Yeah.
It's healthy.
I don't think you can be a warrior unless your heart feels, unless you really feel. And when you're disconnected from your heart and you're a warrior, you're a soldier. It's the difference. Like when you're really connected to your heart, you're a warrior because you feel the pain of those suffering. And that's what draws you forward, you know? And I think that's something that people miss is you have to have both. Like you can't be one and not the other, you know? And also if you feel deeply, I think that the warrior archetype is evoked in you in some ways. Like if you really feel another's pain, like that calls something forward. It's why we love movies of heroes.
Right. Yeah. And it's a shame that those movies with heroes are so programmed that we have to watch a war for the last 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the bit where I usually disconnect. I'm like, oh, okay, the movie's
like,
over
how
now.
long are you going to draw out this scene?
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen. It's going to get really bad for them for a little while, and then it's going to get really good at the end, you know?
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, so how is this experience for you? You know, I was wanting to be sensitive to the kind of intensity of holding that higher frequency in your own body. I see that you hold a crystal with you. Is that helpful in kind of grounding some of the energy? Like, talk to me about your experience when you're in
I'm very
those states.
hot and I've sweat quite a bit. That's quite normal. Yeah, I always used to, even though I was spiritual and self-growth oriented from 16, I never got the crystal people. Like I would see all the crystals and thought they looked nice, but I didn't get it. And then the minute I started channeling, I found a labradorite in Ravenna in Italy, and it accompanied me through my first. I used to do private sessions for 15 years. It accompanied me through all of those, and what they explained was the crystal helps conduct energy for me through my body. It's good. I came here knowing I needed to be open to you. It's not my favorite thing to talk about really polarizing topics or dark topics, not because I'm afraid of speaking about them personally, but because I think it can outrage or inflame people. But that's been my growth. I was a person who was raised to really care about what the neighbors think. So this work has been the biggest gift of the undoing of that, because of course there's a lot of people who have appreciated what I've done over the years, and that's lovely, but you also get stones thrown at you and all kinds of stuff. So I
mean, that's, I think, part of the incarnation that we chose.
100%.
Is to be willing. I really feel like our job is to go first and take the arrows and say, if there be arrows, let them come at me. And that's, and obviously, so grateful for the kindness and grace of the guides in speaking to me personally. I didn't expect that, and also deeply appreciated that as well. But their message is very, very important, and I know many people who are spontaneously coming into contact with guides.
Hugely.
And I will say, an extraordinarily high degree of skepticism, because I want to make sure that actually the message is coming through clean, and that 10%, as you say, that hermeneutic prism of Lee-ness or of Paul Seligness,
100%.
has to be really, really clean.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the message can get distorted.
Yeah.
And I don't see a lot of channels that are as pristine as yours or Paul's. And it doesn't mean that there aren't some out there that are, but my own resonance and it really just lit up when your guides were speaking. And I think that's a testament not just to the guides, but also to you and your own prism that uses your own vocabulary, your own understandings to help allow this transmission to occur.
To go back to your, firstly, thank you, that's very nice. But to go back to your question, I tell you what hits me as I'm listening to you is one of the positive things for me with the kind of questions that you ask. And I've had these, The Future Human with Regina Meredith was a book where a lot of this was covered, a lot of some of the shadow side of the world. What's interesting for me as a channeler speaking to that, because I'm not in a trance, I can hear what is being said, but I can't hear it before it's said.
Right.
So, like if we're speaking, you might in your mind be thinking, oh, I say this, or there's no pre-knowledge apart from the first sentence. I hear the first sentence up here. Then once I start speaking that sentence, it just flows. What I like about talking about those tough areas is I, as a human, can look at what's going on in Iran right now, or America, or anywhere around the world, and my heart can, it's devastating.
Yeah, for sure.
Devastating to most of us to see the darkness that is perpetuated on the planet, if we're fortunate enough to not be right in the darkness, or the darkness is on us, that we can actually look and see it happening. It's devastating to see other people going through it. And it's also just devastating it exists. It can be infuriating that it exists, because it's just like, what is this? When they speak about it, there's none of that feeling. There's none of that feeling of human weight that I can sometimes feel when I'm having a discussion about those topics, or empathically sensing those topics. They don't have that perspective, and it's not because they're heartless. But what I experience, it's interesting they referred to their incarnation through me, because it is a bit like they're in my body, because I always feel this expansion. It's like my energy field gets bigger and wider, and there is more. It's not heart energy as I experience it as a human, but I experience the heart energy around the perimeter. So there's like this bubble of heart energy around that holds everything in the middle. But then these very complex topics, or very dark topics, can be discussed in a way that it's just very expansive. So I find that interesting, just as a human being experiencing it. I'm like, that was some really heavy, tricky stuff that I wouldn't always have an answer for. But they have an answer. And so what I've benefited from as a channeler, since 26 years of channeling, and I've been doing it publicly. This is year 22. It's going to be year 22 in June. It does create an energy field that is wider and can stand back. And that has benefited me in my own journey as a human personally. Of course, I still have my own learnings, my own healing, the fear, or whatever is associated with me, the human individual, and what I've lived, or what I'm here to live, my life themes, they come up. But I don't know what other thing I would have needed other than channeling to give me that capability to also zoom out, so that even if I'm in like the worst thing, I had this moment on the plane yesterday, I was reflecting on it. I'm flying here with my beautiful partner, and we're coming to do this, and I had a total vasovagal response on the plane, and I get those with medical stuff. I get like a real vasovagal, and I was reading the symptoms of something. There's someone in my life that I love very much going through something, and so I was thinking, okay, let me see if I can find anything online. And I started reading this, and as I was reading it, I thought, oh, that's weird. My stomach feels funny, and within like a minute, the sweat started, and I started to go through this, and the stewardess comes in, is everything okay? And you just go, and then I talked to him about it, because he also can have this. And I went to bed last night, and I thought, wow, I went through a total vasovagal response on the plane. It lasted 25 minutes. It was very unpleasant. But the me that first experienced that 20 years ago, that would have been the biggest event of my day, and it would have been horrific, and I would have been... And I was reminded of the truth the Z's say, which is how much more capable we become. I'm so grateful that I'm not tormented by events in my life like I used to be. And the reason I went to self-growth and spirituality was I needed to find the light, because I had imbibed, I'd been on the receiving end of a certain amount of darkness, and I felt like, where is the light? I need to unpick myself from my own self-destructive behavior with food in my childhood, which was my way of coping with my sensitivity, my intuition, my sexuality, all of it turned on myself. I had to turn the other way. But yeah, last night I went to bed and went, wow, I've had so many incredible experiences today. And in the middle of it, I had that vasovagal response can feel like near death. And it's not good. And I was just struck by that last night. And I'm using that to illustrate what I'm talking about with this zoom out perspective that you can develop, that I have developed every time that happens now. There's a bigger voice in me that's like, you're not going to die. Keep breathing. It's okay. You're going to be okay. Even this conversation with you, I couldn't have had this conversation with you 10 years ago and felt okay about it. I might have been concerned for my own safety or my own attack, or I love how we change. And
Yeah, I think one of the things that they mentioned which really resonated is there's going to be a big purge. And obviously on the medicine path with ayahuasca in particular, but many of the medicines, that is a very important part of the process. And, they call that the process of getting well. And that which you purge in the bucket, it's as if there's a condensation in the physical body of something, of an energetic or even potential biological, I don't even know where it's stored, but something is stored, and that thing that's stored is moved through you out of one end or the other, sometimes both at the same time. But they call that double platinum on the inner circles there. But ultimately, I think that's one of the beauties of that is it's almost like it pours so much light, typically. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't contact with darker entities as you're surfing the astral world. Of course there are. But typically you're packing yourself with so much light that it's almost like it forces out the darkness like a splinter. And the ayahuasca in particular allows you to, as the Z's were saying, like literally purge it. Like it's not just a metaphor. It becomes actual literal, where you're really purging some of the darkness that you've held in your body. Now, of course, you'll reemerge into the collective swamp that we're in, which has all of the beauty and all the darkness, and you'll pick more up. And that's why some people say, like, well, why do you need to keep doing it? It's like, well, as I keep immersing myself in an environment where I continue to pick up more of the shit.
I was just going to say,
so it's like, before enlightenment, chop wood and draw water. After enlightenment, chop wood and draw water.
Yeah. And the darkness, it's funny, isn't it? Because so much of our energy and emotion is inherited. One of the questions that the Z's taught me to ask myself, we're so good at personalizing things, and we're usually wrong. Sometimes it's personal. Sometimes it's your thing, your stuff, your feeling. But the Z's trained me to, if I'm feeling off, or if I'm feeling a lot and it's not comfortable or it's knocked me off balance, they've taught me to backtrack through the prior 24 hours and find the origin points of when something started. And it doesn't always track. Sometimes I'm like, no, I know what this is. This is to do with me. But 50% of the time, if I actually do that 24 hours previously exercise, I will find the moment where things started and I'll go, oh, and I'll think about what that person was feeling. So over the years, I've trained myself to be able to be in my own energy field, be in front of someone, feel what's going on in them, and not necessarily respond. But I used to get completely, like many healers or, people pleasers or whatever, you feel something in someone and you think you've got to do something about it, or you get engaged with it. So I think the more
you almost come into like a harmonic resonance with their stuff, right?
Well, yes, because you're out of harmonic resonance with yourself.
Right.
Or you believe that when you are in relationship with someone else, you have to abandon yourself and serve them, because you go, well, my mission is serving humanity's light. Yeah, but choose carefully. Like, you might go, oh, well, my mission is serving humanity's light, and here's this poor person in front of me and they're in an awful space. Okay, great. Give them half an hour. How's it going? Oh, they're still in an awful space. I'll try another 2 hours. they might not have been your person. If they're not transforming, they're not actually able to receive what you're giving. Now, if someone's in an emergency, that's different. Maybe you're someone's emergency. I'm going to hold you up for 4 weeks. Yeah. That's different. But so often in our spiritual community, and I did the same thing. Actually, this is the best example. Years and years ago, I started doing workshops 20 years ago. And I got through about the first 6, 7 years, and the Z's gave me this light bulb moment that I've often taught so that other people pick up on it. Let's say in my early workshops, there were like 30 people in the room. I would focus on the 2 who looked the most distressed. They would draw my attention. I would think, I've got to lift those 2 because those 2 look really... Well, number one, I was wrong because I once had one guy who came to lots and lots of evenings with me, and I thought, God, that guy really doesn't like what I do. I don't know why he keeps coming back, because every time I'm talking, he's looking at, like really funny faces and stuff. And he came up to me on like the 4th class and went, I just want to say that every time I listen to you, it's unbelievable. And the way his face was expressing, I was like, oh, that's just his face. That's just when he's intensely feeling. It wasn't that he didn't like it. But back to my other point, what the Z's corrected me about was they said, if you focus on the lowest vibration in the room, you are not only abandoning the highest vibration in the room, who are willing to go somewhere through you as a conduit, but if you focus on the heart of the room, the people in the middle, you'll still be contacting the high people, and they will all start lifting, and they will bring the people in the lower vibration up. Or the people in the lower vibration, if this is not their room or you're not their teacher, they'll reject you, reject the room, and they'll leave. Or they'll, if they want to be in a complaining or a resistant state, they'll stay the whole day and collect many stories they can tell their friends about how awful it was. Whatever they need, So that was a big moment for me, and it kind of translates to, if I'm with a person and they're telling me their depression story, I used to engage with their depression story. Now I'll engage with it a little bit just to test the waters, and then I'll try throwing something else in and see if they can meet me somewhere else.
Right.
Because that not only takes them out of the low vibe, but you're showing them something else over here. And if they go, oh, yeah, that's interesting, they start moving. Really what you're hopefully doing with any person, and same if someone's helping me, you're just holding space for them to be who they are, but you're not enabling them to stay low. And I can no longer enable people to stay...
coddling someone who's insistent on that being a part of their story. I think that's such an important teaching about just the maintenance of your own frequency and vibration, and 100%. How, so many people, even in the medicine community, there's, traditions that are so concerned about catching. It's almost like people who are concerned about catching a virus or getting sick, or like a germaphobe. They're like spiritual germaphobes. And they're constantly doing these things to protect their auras and all of this. And not that some of that doesn't have a beauty, and it can help, strengthen the mind and create fortitude. But nonetheless, it's not hypochondriac.
You're not going to get that, because you're going to run into the virus.
Right.
You're going to run into the virus because that's your design. You're like, I'm a warrior. I'm going to go, I'm going to become the virus so that I can learn how to heal the virus and show everyone, look, you can heal it. That's you. So, that's the thing. That's why we're all so beautifully unique. And that's why none of us are right, but we might all be the right person for right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is, it's one way to serve. And sometimes I question my methods. Like, do I really need need to learn, learn addiction from the inside, or can I just look at it from the outside,
2-3 years from now, you're going to be doing things very differently.
Yeah.
You've graduated. 2-3 years from now, you're moving into a different season.
I feel that, and I look forward to it, and also bless.
But you'll bring it all with
seasons.
You. I was going to say that's the beauty. You'll be able to sit there with your battle scars and stories, without having to reenact them, or you'll have the wisdom of someone who knows the battle scars, which is fantastic.
Yeah. I am ultimately so grateful for my life, and I think that feeling of gratitude is one of the most beautiful feelings we can have, and we can apply it universally, but it's such a vibration elevator.
Yeah.
That just feeling of the overwhelming gratitude. And, even at the end, I fully agree that we have the capability of making this hell or heaven. And it's just what moves through me is like just the gratitude for this possibility of heaven that we have and how fucking magnificent it is. And without, bypassing how hellish it can be. It can be absolute utter hell.
Yeah.
And it can be the most stunning heaven that you could ever possibly imagine. I mean, I was recently in Iceland, and I was just like, my mind was blown every minute. I'm like, oh my God, Mom. Like, Mom, you're so beautiful.
That is the next place I want to go. I've wanted to go to
You gotta
Iceland.
go.
I know I've wanted to go for years, and it's been rising in me.
My
Like,
God.
I've got to go
It's
now.
like, I mean, I've been so many beautiful places in the world, and so blessed to travel all over. I've never been to Iceland until this past year. I was shocked, like absolutely shocked. I'm going to send you a video of the trip we took.
Great.
Unbelievable. I mean, you can see it all online, but like we were there, and it's like, wow. And I think, and that also with gratitude, there's also that awe, the awe of all of the possibility and the mystery, and I think, as you're saying, like it's too many times we're trying to peek up the mystery skirt, and catch a glimpse of the naughty parts of the mystery or whatever else we're doing. But no, the mystery is part of the goddess. It's part of her nature. We're not always meant to strip her of her clothes. Like to see the beauty and the awe and the mystery and the horror and all of it, and just go, wow.
Yeah.
Fucking wow.
Yeah.
Awe and gratitude for me are like two big compasses, as well as laughter.
Yeah.
Like laughter is so, it's such a high vibration state.
100%. And that's that's laughter. So I come from a family where humor is our love language. So laughing, teasing, like that's so normal. And I, in workshops, the more we can laugh, the better, because it helps the medicine go down.
Totally.
You go from a tough thing into some humor and some laughter, and it kind of balances the whole thing for people. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I think there's, laughter is like an orgasm with different spasms. You know what I mean? It's like both are very high vibration states, especially if done in right relation. You're not laughing at somebody. You're not orgasming at someone else's expense. Of course, understanding that there's predatory aspects to either of these states. But if you're doing it in right alignment and right relation, I mean, it's so powerful. And I think people underestimate the service that a good comedian does. Like,
I was just going to
go
say,
to a comedy
I've always
show,
said stand-up
they're
comedians
they're
are
like laughter shamans.
Yeah.
That's it,
I've
man.
always said that. I love, and of course we're all different in who we resonate with, but I love a great comedian because they really change a room, and they, in most cases, what they're doing is they're allowing the person to see inside themselves and think about something differently, privately laugh about it. It's very interesting how that works. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate all the modalities, and I can go to a gong bath and it's nice, and I feel like, oh, that was nice. Those were good sound
It
waves.
needs a few more jokes.
Yeah, exactly, totally. And I don't trust any spiritual teacher who doesn't have a good laugh. Like that is a prerequisite. But then I think, like, I just went to this comedy show, and like, what is the effect that it had on my energy field? I'm coming out of that comedy show having just gut laughed, and I feel so good.
It's a release. It's a stress release. It's so many different releases happening when you're laughing.
Yeah. And so I think that's one of the challenges in this quote spiritual community is they can get so serious.
Yeah.
Like so fucking serious. And it's not that there aren't serious things to talk about. And it's not like when I was engaging and deeply engaged, I wasn't crying and feeling that. And those feelings are beautiful too. And I celebrate all of those. But like, the balance of laughter, it's just this paradoxical existence. It's the only way to hold it is to laugh. Like, how do you hold this if you can't laugh? It's like, it's the only way that we can hold the paradox of this multidimensional life. Yeah. This has been such a pleasure, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I really, really enjoyed it as well. And I hope this is the start of much more to come.
Great. Thank you.
Is there anything else? I know I'm really excited to read the new book that you have out, and I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm sure it's packed with gems.
Yeah.
And so you have a new book out, so maybe share that with people, or any other last bits of wisdom on places I might have missed.
Yes. So I'm actually doing a tour called the Oneness Experience. We'll be doing 16 dates in North America in the month of June and early July, and we'll be in the UK, Europe, and Scandinavia in October. We're currently working on Australia for March 2027, and that's like a 3.5 hour experience, usually in theaters, where we bring channeling, meditation, music. So myself and my music collaborator, Devor Bozique, we create not only original music and songs and mantra music, but he will also underscore things I'm teaching, my channeling. So it's a very rounded communal experience. So that's why we've called it the Oneness Experience. It's a way of being live in person with people in the room. We're really excited about that. And the best way to find me or follow me is leeharrisenergy.com, the website, or Lee Harris Energy on YouTube. Mm-hmm. So for the last 14 years, I've been doing something called a monthly energy update. So at the beginning of the month, I receive 8 themes that are either already showing up for people or are going to show up in the month to come. And it's normally about a 30-minute video. And I'll just riff on how those themes might show up, how we might adjust ourselves accordingly, what to look out for.
Is that related to the astrology of the moment?
No, it's funny. I love astrology, but I'm not someone who studies it. But I do hear. I have a very good friend, Pam Gregory, and she often says that they intersect and overlap, because I think there's only one of us here, right? So if we're all going up there, we must be tapping in on what's already the universal wisdom. So it's an energy reading for the collective. So yeah, they're free on YouTube on the 1st of every month. And
That's cool.
Lots of other videos and recordings and all the things,
I want to check it out. And, for me, astrology has always been an interesting thing because, like you said, the guide said, the Z said, I have a lone wolf energy, and I don't like to take a system and swallow it whole.
Yeah.
I want to say maybe, maybe Mercury in retrograde is having an effect, and maybe it's just an idea.
Yeah.
And fuck that idea.
Yeah, I'm not a big Mercury retrograde
my
person.
technology's not going to fail.
No, because things fail out. I mean, I'm not disputing those who believe it, but I've got friends in my life who go, "Oh, it's Mercury retrograde, so we can't sign a contract." And I'm like, "What, for how many weeks?" And I understand, I'm not, we do align with certain things, like my business manager, she is very aligned with the moon and when we release things, and I love that. So there's an influence of that,
Sure.
But I'm not going to live religiously. I'm not going to let my life be dictated by whether it's Mercury retrograde or not, because I'm alive every day of the year.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
And I also don't think it has to be controlled.
Right.
I think sometimes that comes from this idea that you have to control. I think sometimes it's great to have something go wrong because you learn something and you learn how to deal with something go wrong. So I'm not trying to control things. I don't think I'm in control. So therefore, there's a level of influence I have, but there's also a level of destiny I'm working through. So
yeah, and I think it's just one piece of the puzzle. And anytime you make one piece the whole puzzle, I think you miss all the different perspectives, because there's rhythms of the seasons. There's the energy of the land that you're in, not just the stars,
100%.
but the land, and also the collective consciousness of your city. Like if you were in Minnesota recently, even if you weren't out there protesting or directly involved, the energy of the collective there was intense.
Yeah.
And I think we all felt that at different
I was in
periods.
England when that was going on, and I felt sick for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's so we're affected by so many different factors. And so I acknowledge astrology may be a piece to the puzzle, maybe an important piece, but also what's happening with the devas, what's happening with the land, what's happening with the collective consciousness, what's happening with what's in our news cycle, what's happening inside our own bodies. Yes, the moon matters too. And those are cyclical ways that we can reconnect with sacred time, which I think is another avenue of disconnection, having these arbitrary 12 months that are disconnected from the lunar cycles and calling, October which is the 10th month, and really means 8. And just like this confusion that we've had about time and the connection that we have to all things, including the cosmos. Yes, we have to reconnect to that, and that's important. So that is very important to me, but also just to behold as much of the whole picture as we can hold, like that to me is super important. And I'm sure that's what you're tapping into when you're giving this energy update, is the multiplicity of factors is what I would imagine, just knowing your channel.
Yes. And of course, when you do an energy update, there are 8 themes usually, and my hope and wish is that, it's useful to people and that maybe 3 or 4 of the themes are resonant for them. But, you know that not every theme is going to be resonant for everyone, and I'm not going to be for everyone. So yeah, you just, my philosophy at this point is, so long as I feel in integrity and aligned with what I'm doing, I will keep doing it. But it's none of my business, actually, what it's doing for someone else, unless they tell me. And even if they tell me, I have to hold that very lightly. It's not good to get too involved in... Okay, let me put it this way. My mom taught me the value of being useful. It's a value I see her live by, and it's the value I actually have realized in my older life. I like being useful.
Sure.
So if this stopped being useful, or if this became just polarizing, I would stop doing this.
Right.
Because it wouldn't align with me.
Yeah.
But equally, I'm not in control of how useful I am. There will be some people I'll be so useful to, and there'll be some people who I'm really annoying to. That's a funny. But that's actually been very liberating to kind of learn to be okay with that. Because that's the thing. When you're broadcasting, it's a kind of weird reality. Most of us have to deal with public perception at a party of 30 people or a gathering of 15 family members. It's a weird thing, isn't it, when an avatar of you goes out on the internet and reaches a lot of people. It's it's kind of a very humbling gift, I think, because it teaches you to be healthy with that. You have to kind of not pay too much attention. You have to be healthily detached, and you have to know there will be people who are going to hate you or are going to be irritated by you. And that's not because of you, that's the world.
Yeah.
That exists in the world. And if a part of you is going to blow up in that way on the internet, or a part of you at a party is going to say something that's quite bold, but it's your truth, you don't do it because you want everyone to agree with you. That's going to hamper you every time, and you're going to edit yourself.
You can do no other because your heart bids you so.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's so important. And also to realize that what happens in the comment thread is not real life.
Well, no, the comment thread is its own thing. Yeah.
People have so much liberty to express their shadow elements that actually, if they saw you in person, because I experienced this. I experienced this huge, explosion of judgment and this almost seeming cancellation attempt after I, shared that I have an unconventional relationship structure. And I was totally shocked and really like taken aback. And then when I reemerged into a public space, I was expecting to see a similar, being the outcast, and I was around actual people, and all I felt was love. You know what I mean? It's like, so this perception that you're hated is crazy. One of my good friends is Jake Paul. He's one of the most famous people in our time right now. And he's so hated online, but every person who meets him, doesn't matter who, it's like, Jake, like everybody, nobody is the same person that they are in the comment thread when they see him in person or see most of us. And there are exceptions to that, of course. You'll get some vitriolic person or someone who's drunk and feels empowered to do that.
Or
so
upset,
I'm not saying that doesn't exist.
And they're not clear they're upset, so they aim it at you. Yeah.
And in our families, I think there's actually even more license because of familiarity to express, some of those darker impulses. But out in the general, people are usually pretty kind to strangers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
For the most part.
It's true.
What a beautiful conversation. I encourage everybody to check out your stuff because I'm going to do it. So I can't wait to dive deeper.
Thanks so much, Aubrey. Thank you.
And I can say thank you to your service because it is a choice. It is a choice to serve. And I know it's what your mission is and what you're here to do. And in some ways you can do no other, but in some ways you could make different choices. And so I honor you for your choices to be led by your heart and for the work that you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. We love you guys. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into this video. Make sure you hit subscribe. Follow me at Aubrey Marcus. Check out the Aubrey Marcus podcast, available everywhere. And leave a comment. Let me know if this video resonated or what else you would like to hear from me in the future. Thank you so much.